Ben, you lost your job during that kind of pandemic phase, and Jay, you obviously you weren't working at the stage because you're in that you know trade there where you couldn't actually do anything, so you're
Yeah.
confined to lockdown. And I understand this was, as we said before, this was kind of the ignition for where the Boomerang Loop Australia was born. And as you said, Ben, you're listening to a plethora of podcasts. You got that initial motivation, but tell me more about the motivation didn't just come from those podcasts you're listening to, but also some quite massive hurdles in your own personal life. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
It's actually Jay, really. I'll let Jay talk to that. There's a lot more of his sort of massive hurdles, which, is again,
Yeah.
should be touched on.
Yeah, look, it started off obviously as a personal challenge. We both wanted to push ourselves to the absolute limits of trying something new and taking on this big task of like cycling around Australia. But kind of at that early stage, we realized that we wanted to do it for mental health. My reason was because I lost three of my friends to suicide at the end of 2019, start of 2020. And it's kind of in their memory, but also for many people that are struggling with mental health across Australia and across the world. During that kind of lockdown period, I think mental health was kind of at the forefront of everyone's minds. Everyone was really thinking about, their own mental health and the people around them, where, you're all kind of in your little bubbles and segregated and in your lockdown. And it was playing on a lot of people's minds. So look, COVID was a bad thing, but it was also a little bit of a blessing as well, because it made people realize what they value in life. And it also made us realize that doing this ride around Australia was for mental health was the right thing, because we had so many people in our lives that were affected by it, including myself as well.
Yeah, and Jay, so I understand you actually lost 3 friends, unfortunately, due to suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I said before, we've actually had Michael Singe on the podcast. He was our first episode, where he actually had a few friends too that had taken their own lives. Recently, in episode 10, we had Gus Warland, whose, I guess, initial ignition for him to create the Gotcha for Life Foundation was a friend taking his own life in 2006. And then, as we said, Ben Woods, who actually lost his brother to the same cause of suicide. Now, at the age of 17 to 18, I think you're at a really low point in your life. Psychologically, you're dealing with clinical depression, and you were at a tipping point where you were almost ready to take your own life. Can you tell us a little bit about that time in your life and how you got through that period?
Yeah, like I know it was. I've lost a lot of people through the years, through various things, suicide, car accidents, and stuff like that. So at that age, navigating life as kind of a late teen, it was all still a bit new to me. And having some friends and stuff like that pass away at that age, I didn't really know how to deal with it. And I'd lost my job at the same time as well. And I was like kind of just at the start of my career. So we were in a bit of a recession at the time. So I lost my job, lost my girlfriend, and a couple of my friends passed away in a car accident as well. So it was all within a couple of month period. And it was a little bit, it was overwhelming. And I didn't really know kind of how to like handle that. Kind of reached out to my parents. My parents were great, but I mean, it's a very rare thing that somebody's hit with all those things at the same time. So looking back, I understand why my parents probably didn't know how to deal with that. So I kind of sunk into myself a little bit, and yeah, those thoughts and things were going through my head at the time. So hence why, yeah, this kind of the bike ride and doing it for mental health is quite a touching for myself and Ben, because you don't really know who's kind of suffering. And at the time, a lot of people probably wouldn't know that I was suffering, kind of smiley faces and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things we were talking about with Gus was kind of like when his mate had everything suspectedly, he had he said status inside of work, status outside of work, family, kids, a great life, but we don't know what's going on deep down below in other people's lives. And I think, that rings true in what you just said there.